الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Welcome again to our viewers. The Arabic term jihad, translated holy war, is one of the terms associated in the media alongside others such as terrorism and fundamentalism with Muslims. We have with us today to discuss jihad a guest, Professor Dr. Anis Ahmad, from the International Islamic University in Pakistan. Welcome, Dr. Anis.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I'd like to ask you as a beginning question, briefly, what's the meaning of jihad? I believe it has some general meanings as well as some specific meanings. Is it a war against non-Muslims, as many Westerners commonly believe?
Thank you very much. The term jihad appears around 50 plus times in the Quran, and it has its root in the Arabic word jahada, struggle, striving. Technically, it refers to all those efforts where one exerts for a specific objective. For example, a scholar goes to Quran and Sunnah and makes his extreme effort to find out what is the meaning and application of certain Quranic hukum or command. Then this becomes ijtihad, which has same root. If a person stands up against injustice, exploitation, corruption, torture, and tries to clean up society and restore peace, this is known as jihad or war. Jihad is a war of liberation against all those aspects which plague humanity. For example, if in a country people have no human rights and they have done their best, it's Islamic obligation that Muslims should assist them in regaining their independence. If somewhere people have been dominated and controlled by media, it's Islamic obligation to go ahead and produce information which will give them fresh air. If somewhere people have been brainwashed and live in a commune in a certain manner, it's our obligation to go ahead, inform them, educate them, enlighten them, and give them liberty to decide for themselves what is good or what is bad. Therefore, jihad is not a term which can be translated as holy war. It is an obligation to educate, change, and transform society. It stands for social change, if I use a modern term. Now, the Quran uses jihad in the sense of a struggle against tyranny and injustice. It has one form which the Quran calls qital. That also appears around 60 times in the Quran in many surahs. Qital refers to bloodshed, or where you are having a war leading to bloodshed. Islamic approach...
Military confrontation.
Yes, confrontation. Islamic approach is very simple. Islam wants corruption to be eliminated with a systematic effort. The systematic effort is jihad. But when everything fails and there is no other option except a tyrant to be removed with force, then Islam allows only that much force to be used which is needed. Therefore, in jihad, no one can take an unnecessary action against opponents. It has an ethics. It has very clear commands in the Quran. Jihad is not a matter of eliminating people ethnically, like we have in the so-called civilized world, ethnic cleansing of people. Jihad is not a war against a race, against a people, but against a system.
Or against a religion even.
Not against a religion either. Jihad is against system, not against religion or people. Therefore, wherever jihad was done, as soon as corrupt system was changed, peace was restored, and people were given their rights. Islam happens to be the only tradition where the scripture itself guarantees human rights for Muslims as well as non-Muslims. The Quran says very clearly, you cannot compel a person to change his religion. The Quran says those who are not Muslims and living with you, you have a responsibility, a zimma for them. You are obliged to protect their life, religious liberty, honor, everything. Which means jihad is not a naked sword to go out and compel people, but it is essentially an ongoing effort to challenge the system and change the system.
I think a lot of people in the West have heard the term the sword of Islam. The rapid spread of Islam in the early days is associated with the sword. And of course, there was a military component to this. I think it would be interesting to talk about who were these people that went to fight, I won't say for the spread of Islam, but in this process of spread, the Muslims that were in active military duty. Were they good Muslims? Were they people who were hired to do the job? If they were Muslims, were they people with ethics? Were they people who were following the example of their prophet in the most illustrious way of life? Can you bring us some examples from history, or can you generalize what sorts of activities and standards there were?
Yes, jihad has three very clear phases. One, in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was alive himself, there was jihad. And he himself participated, although he did not use sword himself. Second, in the time of companions, where we find different armies sent to places where it was brought to their notice injustice is prevailing. Third, during the dynasties like the Umayyads, there again we find that people like from Spain came to Muslim rulers and said, our own Christian rulers are not doing justice to us. They are acting like oppressors. Muslims went at their request to liberate them from oppressors, and that's why they did not convert them but gave them a system. If sword was used for conversion, after having ruled for over 800 years in Spain, in India, and elsewhere, there won't be a single person following any other religion.
Yes.
Islam has tried to look for a systemic change of system, but not forcing it on people by using sword at all.
So it's not correct for Muslims to wage war against non-Muslims for any reason except the most extreme last effort against oppression or something of this sort, an injustice in society.
That's correct. Jihad means that you make all possible efforts and it may culminate in armed conflict. It may not need that, and you may be able to change the system.
Thank you very much for today's discussion about jihad, and thank you to our viewers for joining us.
طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع. Oh, the white moon rose over us from the valley of Wada, and we owe it to show gratefulness where the call is to Allah. طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع. رسول الله حبيب الله نبي الله شفيع الله. رسول الله حبيب الله نبي الله